Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're taking a look at The Crow. Yes, the remake starring Bill Skarsgard and FK Twigs is out. We're excited to talk about it. Little goth action horror, right, in the middle of your summer. Why not? We're rolling into October. Well, September 1st and then October. But eventually we'll get there to a Halloween feature like this. We're excited to talk about The Crow and whether or not it holds up to the original. We're also going to take a look at Evil Does Not Exist. This is the new Ryûsuke Hamaguchi feature. He did Drive My Car. We covered that on the show last year. Really enjoyed it. I ended up picking up the Criterion for Drive My Car. But aside from that, excited to talk about Evil Does Not Exist, a stealth thriller, it's been called, which I'm excited to kind of explain more about that. Stick around for that review. We're going to take a look at some trailers, some upcoming things you want to keep an eye on. One particular trailer that dropped today, the day we're recording the show, the hotness. So we're excited to talk about that when we get to our trailer park segment in between our reviews. And before everything, we're going to talk about the news. Our first story this week from Megalopolis. Lionsgate has pulled the Megalopolis trailer featuring fake movie critic quotes. Oh no. Andy, what is going on with Francis Ford Coppola's big next great feature?
This is so great. This week in movie marketing mishaps, that could be its own segment. A new trailer for Megalopolis dropped, and they did this kind of counter strategy where they opened with these quotes from Francis Ford Coppola's earlier films, now regarded as masterpieces, but with negative quotes on them. Things like The Godfather. They had this from the Village Voice, The Godfather, a sloppy, indulgent film, or Apocalypse Now, hollow at its core. And of course, these are now famous staples of American cinema. And it used that to set up, and now Megalopolis, and it basically, don't listen to the critics, they're not going to get it, but this is really a masterpiece. And we've seen Gaspar Noé do things like this, but apparently all these quotes were completely fake. Like, they actually did not appear in any of these publications, the New York Times, the Village Voice. They even used Roger Ebert. Like, they used fake quotes, and it turned out the marketing company had used like AI generated all this stuff and just threw it on the trailer. And it was incredible because the trailer came out in the morning, and by the evening, cat was out of the bag, and they had pulled the trailer, and I think fired that company. So it's a real wild story in the marketing of this movie.
It's such a shame for Megalopolis heads out there, because if you've been following the development of this film, if you've been listening to the show, we've been talking about it. Francis Ford Coppola has sunk functionally everything into getting this dream film made, Megalopolis, right? Like, he sold his winery and he sunk $100 million of his own dollars, and then Lionsgate jumped on to market it, but he's still got to chip in a bunch to make it work. And we finally get a full trailer for this thing, and it's just as controversial as the film is supposed to be. It opens with these quotes of the great films Coppola's made, right? Under American Zoetrope, his own shop. It can't be done. It's too artsy. They said it couldn't happen. Dracula. Like, this stuff looks so exciting. And then you find out that the trailer's totally bogus and totally false and not real. And it's such a shame. Because honestly, like, I think Andy, like myself, like, I was uniquely charmed by it. I couldn't believe it that the trailer opened up with such force to come out and say in front of everybody, look, you're doubting me again and again. Here, I'm going to show you that I can make something great, Megalopolis. Like, it seems so exciting in the spirit of the film and what Coppola's trying to do. And it turns out totally bogus. Such a shame. Such a shame. Shame on the marketing people who put this together. Shame on the AI quotes. Like, I couldn't believe it. A disgrace to Ebert and the other reviews that I think Ebert was in there too. Yeah. Pauline Kael, like a bunch of people that just got like totally taken out of context or just had words put in their mouth for the sake of a fake trailer. Like, such a shame.
And what's funny about this is that this movie has just stumbled. It just had stumble after stumble for like the last 4 months trying to promote this thing. There was a whole thing, obviously, about like it going over budget. Its reception at Cannes, where it got a 10-minute ovation, but then got smeared in the reviews. Sexual harassment allegations against Francis Ford Coppola. He even after this debacle with this trailer, he continues to kind of put his foot in his mouth. There was another story about him saying, I look to make a movie with people who had been canceled. It gets worse and worse for that PR team. And we still have a month until this comes out. This comes out at the end of September.
I think it's going to be maybe the worst movie of all time, and I can't wait to see it. We will cover it on this show. for sure. We will get to it. But for now, we got to talk about some more news. In the streaming world, this one's odd. Chick-fil-A hatches plans for streaming service as reality TV comes home to roost. Shout out for Deadline for the clever headline. This is quite the story. Apparently, Chick-fil-A is looking to move into the entertainment space with its own streaming platform and game show to boot. Andy, what do you know about this?
So, in a really what seems like a fake and bizarre story, like you said, Chick-fil-A is getting into the entertainment business via reality TV. And while this sounds really strange, apparently a lot of these big tech companies and startups have taken this strategy. Lyft, the rideshare app, did a similar thing, as did Airbnb. And when you think about it, it makes sense in a way because they have the environment to create a reality show. They just need to turn on cameras. You have say you have an Airbnb in some exotic locale, and you can script half of it and throw a bunch of characters in there and turn on the things and promote Airbnb while you do. And it's a similar thing. I don't know what their kind of shows are going to be, but they're looking to, I guess, again, brand Chick-fil-A into as a streamer and get into the entertainment business. And I mean, reality TV is cheap to make. You don't really have to pay writers. You can improv a lot of it. You can just kind of outline. So it's a really crazy idea, but it's not unheard of.
Yeah, it seems really obvious that they are just partnering with some kind of production service who will have the studio and the lights and the talent and will organize everything. Chick-fil-A will foot the bill, they will produce content, and then Chick-fil-A will make money off of that, ideally. And of course, market their product a little bit. The company I think of when I hear this story uniquely is BuzzFeed, who owns Hot Ones, starring Sean Evans, that chicken wing show. You know Hot Ones. Hot Ones is more than just the Sean Evans interviews you see now. They spun off and did a game show. They have a board game, The Last Dab. They've got their own line of hot sauces. Like, Hot Ones has made it very obvious that you can branch out from one core product into a bunch of different spaces, including entertainment. And while Hot Ones is a streaming show and Chick-fil-A is a restaurant chain, I do think there's some crossover there. Like, if you can bring people in the right way, and of course around one core product, like some delicious chicken that they'll like, I'm sure, then yeah, I don't know, you can get some views. I don't see this being an app on my Xbox. I'm not going to see the Chick-fil-A app next to like the Netflix app. I don't think that's going to happen in the future. But I don't know. Maybe they'll come up with a cool gimmick for a game show, right? Maybe the Chick-fil-A show will be something. What do you think?
I saw a great tweet that was like, imagine your show doesn't get picked up by Chick-fil-A. It didn't qualify for the stream. I mean, that's the thing with a new player coming to the table. That is an opportunity for producers, writers, actors to get in on it, and they're looking to create. And with reality TV, and especially when you own a streaming service, you really want to own the content. You don't want to license other people's stuff, and so they're going to be at least looking to produce. And we'll see what kind of service that is and what kind of content it dreams up.
From the Marvel camp, a story this week. Marvel sets James Spader to return as Ultron for Marvel's Vision series. Following, of course, the success of WandaVision on Disney Plus from just a few years ago, it sounds like we're finally getting a series about Vision, Paul Bettany's character in the comic series. And it sounds like James Spader from Avengers 2 might be coming back to do a little voice work. What do you think about this, Andy?
It's kind of sad that these great film villains are seeing their last hurrah be on TV. We saw this in the Obi-Wan and Darth Vader series, where Darth Vader's last appearance has been in a Disney Plus show, not even like on regular cable. And this is kind of what's happening here. James Spader, who was of course in the 2016 Avengers Age of Ultron, the second Avengers film, he was the main antagonist in that movie. He is, of course, just to catch you up on the lore, he's a creation by Tony Stark in an attempt to create an AI to save the world. It turns evil. They have to fight it, and so he's going to be showing up in the Vision series, which is actually the third in kind of an unofficial trilogy of starting with WandaVision, Agatha all along, and then whatever this Vision show is going to be. And the premise is going to be the white Vision that was kind of cloned or recreated is going to have to kind of find his way. He has all of Vision's memories, but Wanda is gone, like, but his love for her isn't. We don't really know much about that, but that's what it's shaping up to be.
Go figure, this would be like the third in a like newly planned trilogy for the WandaVision show, like with Agatha all along kind of mixed in there. I'm sure you greenlight a Vision show, people will go back and watch that other one, right? Like it's all cross promoting. We got to figure out how we can thread the needle and make something people want, and also that people will go watch 6 other pieces of content for. And I'm glad that Spader is coming back to the role. I think he did a great job as Ultron. I like Paul Bettany as Vision. Like I think those are both fine characters. But also I do wonder if it just seems like Marvel's still mired in this like look back at the past that they can't seem to get out of. This was recently highlighted with the casting of Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom in the newly oriented Avengers movies after Kang is out as the villain. It just seems like they're maybe stuck a little bit, right? Back then. And the rest of us are looking forward to like, what's next? It's like God, I'm going to dunk on Katy Perry on our movie podcast. It's like Katy Perry putting out like her hot new single when like Charlie XCX just dropped Guess with Billie Eilish. Like we're into this thing.
You got
now.
nothing.
You got to come over. Like you got to come do this thing that we're all doing. And Disney seems to be trying to thread that needle. And meh, right? Like it sounds fine.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm reminded of this great line from the show Daisy Jones and the Sixth, where this band, it's about the rise and fall of this band, and one of the characters realizes kind of as their star is falling and their lead singer is going to go solo, he's like, oh, I guess that's why they call it the moment. And that's what's kind of happening here is like the moment for Marvel is kind of come and gone, and they're trying so desperately to get it back, and there's not really any getting it back. You should really just like see how things are now and try to move forward. And who knows when this is going to come out. That's the other thing. Like their production used to be so fast, and now it is so slow. If this were coming out in like 6 months to a year, that would be kind of exciting, but it's probably 2 years away at least. And who knows where Marvel's going to be at that point. It is exciting to see James Spader back in this role because he does have such an iconic voice and character, but I think it's just more signs that Marvel's cooked.
Yeah, I see that. One place where Marvel isn't cooked, of course, is the box office, which is hard to believe, but dude, Deadpool and Wolverine is unstoppable. It's back on top this week. Blink twice underwhelms. The Crow does not do as good, I think, as maybe they had hoped, but we're going to talk about The Crow in a minute. What's going on at the box office this week, Andy?
So like you said, Deadpool and Wolverine is back on top, as well as Alien Romulus, and it ends with those. Those are the top 3 at the box office, followed by Blink Twice, which is a film that I had completely written off. Like I was like, oh, this looks like some late summer stuff you just kind of dump. It's Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut of kind of a these girls get whisked away to this private island with a bunch of other people, and they're like, oh, what could go wrong? And of course, everything goes wrong. Apparently, it's actually a really good movie. I've been hearing some really great things about it when I had completely wrote it off. But that came in 4th, rounded out by a faith-based film called The Forge. And The Crow came in like 8th. Real bad. $50 million movie. It made like $4 million. Came in behind Coraline. So we're at the end of the summer. And it's bad.
It's difficult for me to dunk on Coraline doing well because I typically am a ardent Leica supporter, and anything they make, I will go see. So it's good that movie's making money again. But The Crow is radically underperforming, and like I don't know. I think maybe they were going for like that Venom crowd, right? Like dark CGI, kind of fun. Go see it with your teenage friends. But it just, well, we'll talk about the review in a minute. In the meantime, like Deadpool and Wolverine continues to succeed. No surprise there. And Blink Twice, I think, yeah, we're going to have to go see. Interestingly, Blink Twice, I know we haven't reviewed it, but I think just for metric's sake, it's got a B- cinema score. And The Crow also has a B- cinema score, but nobody's been dunking on Blink Twice all weekend. Whereas The Crow, people are like memeing, like, oh God, this is bad. Or worse, just no memes because they didn't bother to see it. I don't know. I think it kind of flew under the radar because it's indie and maybe has some good talent behind it. I wouldn't mind getting around to seeing it at some point. But for now, man, things are just really slowing down going into the holiday. Like everything's kind of, we're hitting the brakes. Trailer packages are getting real lean.
That's usually how it is. And actually, even though this is a holiday weekend with a Labor Day coming up, usually movies don't, they just don't drop because they're back in school, back in college, back from vacation, and they might be going on one last hurrah, one last trip before the fall starts. And so movies generally don't come out. And if they do, they usually kind of do bad. And so there's not really any big releases this week. So we'll see how we get into September, because now it's dire. There are a lot of re-releases coming out in September in the coming months, because we don't have a lot of product because of the labor strikes last year.
Yeah, which will actually be the perfect seed bed for Andy and I to go see some old stuff that we missed during the summer. So we're looking forward to filling out the reviews. All right, it's going to be all good here on Off Script. While the movies may not be that hot, we are going to have plenty of content for you. So don't stress about that. What we need to worry about now, though, is talking about The Crow. Andy's going to be taking the summary on this one. Andy, please take it away.
The Crow. So this is the remake of the 1994 classic, which originally starred Brandon Lee, son of famous martial artist Bruce Lee. Brandon Lee was tragically killed in this movie, very similar to the Rust shooting with Alec Baldwin a couple of years ago. Brandon Lee was also killed by a firearm that had a live round, or something went wrong with that whole process, was killed on set of the film. They were able to finish it, and it went on to be a huge success, was made for around $20 million, was a $100 million film in the early 90s, spawned 2 sequels, not instigated, informed and inspired things like the Matrix. A lot of the styles, some of the shootouts and stuff, you see that kind of stuff show up in the Matrix a few years later. So here we are 30 years later. It's directed by Rupert Sanders, who's also directed things like Snow White and the Huntsman and Ghost in the Shell. This movie is about Eric Draven, and his love Shelly. In this version, they are 2 recovering addicts who find each other and fall in love in a rehab center. They eventually break out and kind of go on the run for a little bit because of her connections and who she is. She's got friends with a lot of money, and they have a hideout for a while. But Shelly has seen things that she shouldn't have, and there's some gangsters after them. And this is kind of long as going on in this film, but they are tragically killed, and Eric comes back to life. Eric Draven comes back to life as the Crow and has superhuman abilities. He can be shot, stabbed, but he heals, he recovers, and he's on a quest for revenge and to find out the truth of who is behind all this. This is nearly beat for beat from the original. I tried to watch the original. I only got about 2/3 of the way through, but it does some things differently. We have a kind of a different B plot going on. Lots to talk about. Zach, what do you think?
You know, I was going to jump in here and say that I have not seen the original, so I'm just going to review this objectively. You don't have to worry about my opinion being tainted, but that Andy had, and he can explain. And it's so much funnier that you tried to watch the original and gave up halfway through. That's about the funniest possible way to approach this.
It's just kind of slow. It was a big hit, but man, it was just a little slow.
Yeah, and I tell you what, like, I think the Crow, the 2024 Crow, the one we're talking about here, I would say it is fair, fine even, so bad it's good cinema. That's what I think. Because it's not good. The Crow is definitely bad. It is full of ADR and studio notes to speed it up and make it go faster, and kind of excuses for it to be an R-rated film when it fundamentally feels like a PG-13 movie on its face. Like, it just feels like there was some fighting behind the scenes. It feels like things didn't work out that good. And what we get is a movie that's a story you've seen before, right? Like, man and woman are in love, something happens to woman, man gets superpowers, becomes human pincushion, defeats evil, attempts to save woman. Like, good stuff. Fine story. Broad, you don't have to think too much about it. And the stuff that works in The Crow, I think, is, not bad. The black goo and the tattoos and the trench coat and the dark stuff and the you can't die. Like, oh, that's relatively fun. I think it's got some good lines. It's got a couple cheesy montages. It's the kind of thing you dunk on with your friends at the movies. And when it's summer at the movies, that's not a bad time. And I typically am not very good at reviewing so bad it's good movies. So I feel pretty good in saying this one's like right in the middle. Baseline for me. And I'm excited to talk about what works and then get to that chunky stuff that drags it down, I think. What do you think, Andy?
So I think there's good and bad. This has definitely been overhated on the internet and on film Twitter. It definitely has got problems, but there are some things that do work for me. I think Bill Skarsgard's performance is really solid, especially the longer it goes. I think he does well with what he's given. We do get I think the third act is real strong as we get to the climax. We get some really gnarly action and gore. It just takes a while to get there. Um, but I kind of want to start with the plot a little bit because this is probably the biggest difference from the original. In the original, he is the crow from the very beginning, and you get the flashbacks of their death, or you get their death in flashbacks throughout the film. So he starts the revenge right from the beginning. In this, it takes a while for him to become the crow. It doesn't really happen until about Act Two, and it reminded me of Batman Begins in that way, where there's a whole lot of backstory. We spend the first act really developing his relationship with Shelly, and that's kind of the big difference. Is that it takes a long time to get there, whereas in the original, he's the crow kind of from the beginning, killing everyone. And it reminded me of Candyman in the same way, because the modern Candyman does a little bit of the same thing. It's like an origin story.
Yeah, I was reminded of like the first Deadpool film, or even more recently, like Deadpool and Wolverine, in that you have a character who's like functionally invincible, but is flawed in their interior, right? Eric is a character who is full of problems. We first meet him at a rehab facility, and he is not at all normal. And hilariously, the movie is full of imagery and words and sounds that are all screaming like they came out of the inside of a Hot Topic, right? Like Eric's like cell at the rehab facility has all these like just like the most I'm 14 and this is edgy like ballpoint pen drawings of like dark twisted stuff and these weird stick figure characters. And FKA Twigs comes in. She's like, "Oh, this looks great. This is this poetry. This looks like it'd be great set to music. Like it's so hilariously wrote." And like this extends to like their tattoos. Their general character design is goofy on its face because it doesn't go far enough to like be taken seriously. At least for me, like it still feels like a summer movie. But the characters playing them or the actors playing them do a great job. Skarsgård goes all the way. Like he is wildly toned for this feature. I couldn't tell you what his diet's been like. And while his vocals are pretty bad, like a lot of his audio is not great because he still I think needs to iron out that accent a little bit where he can. He does a really good job of giving the on-screen charisma, big looks, especially when he like actually suits up and gets the face paint on. Like he just looks like a bad dude, right? Like people are terrified of him, running away from him on the street. Like, oh, look at this hooligan. FKA Twigs, meanwhile, like not bad. She kind of has this doe-eyed appearance going for her. Reminds me of like early Mia Goth, right? I could see her doing like a period film, some Victorian thing where she's got like braids and like a big bonnet that she wears, like, or she can do something like this where she's like hyper modern. She's living out of her friend's penthouse and is tied up in some sketchy deals with sketchy characters, but mostly a well-meaning individual. And then there's Danny Houston, who plays the villain. You'd know him as Stryker in an X-Men Origins Wolverine movie. He was also in oh God, I don't know. He's played a couple villains in the past.
He's a lot of stuff.
I'll IMDb him in a minute. He has like the chunkiest script to try to deal with because his character has some unique abilities, I should say, that run counter to our Crow protagonist. But he does a good job. Like he hams it up, I think, in just the right way. He knows it's goofy. He still delivers it with force. Like I don't know. Like between the three talents at the lead of this film, I think they all earn their paycheck. They all do a fine job. Tonally is where I think the movie does not work super great, and that's where you get a lot of laughs.
Yeah, I agree. So in the original, Danny Houston's character is not in it. He kind of does this mind control thing, and that's just not in the original at all. That was invented for this film. To me, that it doesn't really work. It's supposed to be another, I don't know, aspect of the revenge story. It's real clumsily inserted. Along with that there's a lot of scenes in limbo in this one where you're talking with some sort of entity between life and death, and he said you must go back and make things right. There's none of that in the original either. I didn't mind those scenes. I saw some of that was inspired and unique. But yeah, it's definitely a little bit all over the place, and just it takes a long time to get going. Like like I said, you're waiting. And you're waiting when we know the beach makes you old. When do you get
Yes.
when are the
Yeah.
characters going to realize on screen? Like I said, it's like Batman Begins, because he's not the Crow. He becomes the Crow, but then he's like clumsy and figuring it out, and then by the end he's like Crow extraordinaire, ready to take revenge.
Well, that was somewhere, yeah, the script both excelled at being funny and failed at being clever. Um, like Eric is dumb. He's super dumb, dude. Like, which makes sense because if you're like this tatted up drug addict who's covered in scars and bad ideas, who's lived a speckled life of awful, like who is just coming into a relationship with a woman, and now you're trying to investigate like maybe where she's been or where she's going or what happened to her to try to get to the bottom of what's going on. Like he doesn't make any clever decisions. He doesn't like contact a PI. He's not like, ooh, I worked this out or I figured this. He like stumbles into clues, right, that lead him to the next logical step. And then our second act is definitely a chunky, spotty studio told you to make this 20 minutes faster edit full of like a lot of ADR and I don't know, but I saw that guy down the street. He's the one you want, like that kind of junk, just sending the Crow from place to place to just kind of get him moving along. And like Andy said, the beach makes you old. We know that he eventually gets some face paint and a trench coat and lights things up. So you're kind of waiting the whole movie for that to happen. It finally gets there. And I should say with grace, I think Andy's right. Third act, not bad. A little chunky in the middle. Good start, good end. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Certainly better than like the 6% it had on Rotten when it premiered. Like I was really surprised to see it reviewed that poorly.
Yeah, the action is part of where this excels. Like I said, he learned. It takes him a little bit to learn that he is invincible, but he's not painless. So he experiences the pain of like a gunshot or a stab wound, and like those wounds are real gnarly, and they will heal back up. But he definitely feels the pain. There's a couple of scenes where he has to like set bones and like stitch himself back up. That's it's real body horror stuff. And then by the end, he's a little bit better at it. But that's, a lot of people had compared this to kind of having a little bit of a John Wick look. And by the time we get to that third act climax, that we really do get that kind of action is pretty awesome. I just think we needed a little bit more of that earlier on. Again, it seems like they were maybe trying to build a franchise, and it's like, oh, well, in Crow 2, he will start as the Crow and he'll already be kicking ass. So I don't think we're going to get a sequel to this, but I think that's what they were kind of going for. Again, very much like the Candyman remake.
Yeah, I did stick around. Just out of curiosity, did you stick around? And is there a post-credit scene? Like, do you?
I did not.
I bailed.
I heard there's
wasn't,
not.
But yeah,
Like the people that clean the people that clean the theater can't go until it's completely empty. They'll like wait, and so they were like, "There's no end credit scene.
get
You
out.
can leave now."
Yeah, right. We're paid by the hour. Yeah, no, I get that. No, and which is good, I should say, because I did think Crow was going to end with some kind of fat teaser for like come back next summer for the Crow 2, which will never get greenlit because we're not making any money. But no, it's got a pretty good beginning, middle, and end. Ties it off pretty tight. Doesn't overstay its welcome for an hour 51. Not too bad. Like that's the other thing. You're not looking at a 2.5 hour slog. Like it does slow down a little in the middle, but not in a way I think general audiences wouldn't like only in the way that like your average film podcast host would be like, this is too slow for me. Like it's fine. It's more than fine. From what I've heard from people who saw it, like myself and Andy, a couple friends, everybody seems pretty warm on it. Honestly, like it's not nearly as bad, I think, as it's been hammed up to be. Like I think it's easy to dunk on the Crow, but like I would put it in the realm of Sony's Venom series, right? Like dark and a lot of CGI, but fun. You don't have to think a lot about it. Like it's not that bad. It's really not. I'm kind of glad we watched it, to be honest.
Yeah, I wanted to mention a couple of more positive things. I really enjoyed the score to this. Like it reminded me a little bit of Joker, which was scored by Gudna Hilnadottir. This kind of has a similar vibe. It has a little bit of that kind of Joker sound. It also has a number of needle drops, which is one of the few things I've seen people praise about it. Some really good choices in kind of pop rock music. So the musical part of this, I think, is actually one of the better aspects of it.
Yeah, and I also like the visuals. Like I know I said at the top that like, oh yeah, the trench coat and the face paint's cool, but like it is kind of fun, man. Like yeah, when he's like getting out tattoo ink and painting it on his face, like there's some kind of little bit of part of you that always wanted to wear like cool torn up jeans and a belt in school and you never did, and you're like, okay, yeah, like you can vibe with that a minute. The music's fun, the visuals are not bad. Skarsgård is working hard for it. I don't know, man. I don't have much more to say. Any other thoughts or recommendations, Andy?
No, I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend The Crow?
I would definitely say save it for streaming unless if you're a big fan of The Crow, like you're a big fan of the 1994 version. It kind of has a cult following, and you're really interested. I think you might enjoy it, but you just got to go in a little bit with an open mind, knowing that they've made a lot of different changes from the original. They spend a lot more time on him and Shelly's relationship at the beginning. It takes a little bit of time to kind of get to the action. But when we do, I think it's pretty fantastic. If you're on the fence, like I said, save it for streaming. Watch it in 6 months.
Yeah, I think Crow's not bad. I would put it in like the $5 Blu-ray bin at Walmart. You know what I mean? Like in the way that like, yeah, it's not great. All right. But if you catch it on sale or it's on TV, or your friend throws it on in October at a Halloween party, like you might find yourself actually watching a few minutes. You might be like, hey, wait a second. This isn't too shabby. Like I'm surprised at the hate it's gotten. It bums me out it's not going to do better. It is by no means a great movie. It's not making a top 10 list this year, at least not for me. But you know what? Crow's not that bad. It's not that bad.
I've seen so much worse.
Dude,
so much
worse. We've seen
like,
some junk this year. It's true. Yeah, Crow's not too shabby.
I mean, I was talking about last week when I watched Jackpot. I had to watch it in like 3 parts because I was bored out of my mind. At least
Dude.
like that didn't happen in The Crow.
Yes, our Jackpot review last week is much shorter, and if you want to check that out, hit the feed. You can check us out. You know, see old episodes of Off Script, what have you. Just shamelessly plug the show. Anyway, we should move into the next segment of our episode. Andy, what do we call this segment?
It's time for the Trailer Park.
So 3 trailers to talk about this week on the Trailer Park. The first one, much anticipated by your boy here. Keen listeners of the show may recall at the end of last year, we talked about our most anticipated films of 2024. I put this one up towards the top. This one was high for me because I couldn't believe it. We heard whispers of this. I thought there's no way this is happening, but it's true. Warner Brothers is making and putting a Lord of the Rings film in theaters this year. Yes, those Lord of the Rings. Yes, those Warner Brothers. The film is The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, an anime feature film set in the Lord of the Rings universe. Just reading this gets me excited. Yes, The War of the Rohirrim is set hundreds, I think maybe thousands of years before the events of The Lord of the Rings. It is about a settlement in the kingdom of Rohan where things are good and the prince and the princess and the king are happy. Her dad, princess, and her father, the king, are happy. And then they have some folks over for dinner one night from a warring clan to smooth things over, make sure things are cool, right? Allies even. But then suddenly, Rohan's attacked in the night, and they're forced to go to battle and do battle with what I think used to be a close ally in the War of the Rohirrim. It's feature length. It's an anime film. It's a prequel to The Lord of the Rings. I can't believe they're putting it in theaters. Andy, what do you think?
I was initially not really excited about this project. I was like, I don't know about this. Like, is this going to work? Why are we doing this in anime style? Then I saw this trailer, and I was totally into it. It really turned around because it's got a little bit of this Game of Thrones feel where there's these 2 big families. They're supposed to have a betrothed marriage to each other to ensure peace. That all goes bad. People are betrayed. Someone's killed at the wedding, and then all that war happens between these 2 clans. And man, it got me. I was like, oh, I'm actually kind of excited about this. I want to see what's going on here. And this is going to feature the voice talents of Brian Cox and Miranda Otto, who is playing Éowyn and who played Éowyn in the Lord of the Rings series or films. So I think it's maybe just 100 years before or something like that. But
yeah,
so we do have very talented voice cast. So I'm actually kind of excited about it.
Yeah, me too. We'll see. I do know, like, at least Fathom event anime features do pretty well in small runs. I don't know what a national release of this is going to look like. Certainly a global, but dude, keep your eye on Oscar for more. We will probably check out where they're here. And what's next, Andy?
Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. So this is an upcoming documentary by DC Studios about Christopher Reeves, who, of course, was the first person to portray Superman on screen in 1977's Superman the movie, which was directed by Richard Donner. He, of course, if you don't know, had a tragic accident in 1995. He was thrown from his horse during an equestrian thing, thrown, broke his neck, was paralyzed from the neck down instantly. And this was like global news, like international news. And it was, he had children, younger children at the time, completely turned his life upside down. And so the majority of this documentary is also, it's not just him becoming and being this iconic character, but then his fight for becoming an activist for disability rights and for kind of giving a second lease on life. Because, there's a lot of documentary footage that they have interviews with him where he was like, yeah, I was just ready to die, when he's like, what am I going to do? I don't want to be like this for the rest of my life. I've ruined my life, the lives of my family, my wife, my kids. But then he worked really hard to still be, a functional adult in his situation, and kind of come away to still be an inspiring figure, even as someone who that's who he played on screen. So really kind of tear-jerking trailer. Like, this looks really good.
I'm really impressed with Warner Brothers' presentation. Here. Man, you hear about this trailer? I mean, I was just talking about it. I think listeners are probably like, a Christopher Reeve documentary? That's going to be painful and tragic. 100%. Warner Brothers has not only licensed out, like, using the image of Superman, a very great property for Warner Brothers, a very near and dear property for Warner Brothers. Not only are they using Superman in this documentary, like, he is intrinsically entwined with Reeves the man, down to the title. And that's wildly powerful when you spend any time with that. Like, the idea of a man who can fly, the Man of Steel, right? Versus Christopher Reeves and his career, the incredible highs, the tragic lows. That's tough, man. And like, Warner Brothers has held back seemingly nothing here. Like, they've got footage, they've got movies, they've got iconography. Like, again, down to the very title of the feature. Like, I think that's really cool. Like, I think that says this is made by a studio who cares. I think these are made by people who are genuinely well-meaning. What more could you hope for in Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, right? Like, probably going to be great. I don't know if we'll end up covering it on the show, but I'll probably watch it at some point. Like, it seems like it seems like a tough watch, but like a good time. You know what I mean? Like, tugs at the heartstrings. Like, seems great. One more trailer to talk about. This trailer dropped today. I'm very excited to talk about it. It's a trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Yes, the third Sonic feature. Naysayers said it couldn't be done. At some point, I may have been one of those naysayers, but Paramount's come a long way since the Blue Hedgehog was originally revealed for Sonic 1. Everybody freaked out. They shifted course, changed gears, and put out a solid feature. Then Sonic 2 comes out a couple years later. Another banger. Now they got a Knuckles series on Paramount. This feature is going to include Sonic the Hedgehog, Tails, his friend, Knuckles, another one, and the newcomer,
Echidna.
Shadow the Hedgehog, right? Yes, a Sonic-like hedgehog who's dressed in, or I should say covered in black and red fur. Dark sordid past, voiced by Keanu Reeves. Film also features Jim Carrey returning as Dr. Eggman, which I'm pleased. I didn't think he was going to do another one of these, and I was actually really glad to see him in here. He's a really highlight of this. James Marsden is back. The whole crew's back. Sonic 3 looks like it's going to make $1 billion. Andy, what do you think?
I was kind of surprised at how much this trailer got me hyped, because we reviewed the first Sonic, and it's fine. It's definitely a kid's film. We didn't see Sonic 2. And then this comes out, and this looks like the Dark Knight of these Sonic movies, because you got Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles all teaming up and not being able to defeat Shadow the Hedgehog. And they said, hey, I think we got to do it. We got to call on our enemies to friends storyline. Jim Carrey is Dr. Robotnik. They have to all team up together in order to defeat Shadow the Hedgehog. And I was like, this looks kind of amazing. Like this looks like there's
Dude.
tragic. Someone's gonna die in this. Like, um, I was surprised at how kind of exciting this looked. And this comes out December 20th, which is the exact same day that Mufasa, the Lion King, comes out. So these are going to do head-to-head battle for kids' eyes. And I don't know who's going to win. I saw a great tweet that said, the kids are going to want to see Sonic 3 and then get outvoted by the parents and have to go see the Lion King.
Yeah. I can't. I remember talking about Mufasa, Tufasa,
Mufasa.
Yeah, when its release date got announced with Sonic the Hedgehog 3, I was like, oh my god, Disney's Lion King prequel is about to get hammered by Sonic the Hedgehog 3. There's no way, dude. I'd move the date if I was them. There's no way I'd be coming out next to this. It's nuts. I don't know what they're thinking. That's a terrible. You're gonna also put out a CGI animal movie
cool.
the week this comes out, dude. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
it looks so cool. It looks so cool.
Mufasa's hyper realistic animals, and this is like intentionally stylized to be cool. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Listen, we've been wrong on this show before, but not often. We're right way more than we're wrong. So with that, we should move into the final review of the episode. I'm gonna be taking the summary on this one. And it might be a clunky summary. IMDb is going to help me out with this, so I'm looking forward to it because I'm going to need the help. The movie is Ryûsuke Hamaguchi's Evil Does Not Exist. So, Evil Does Not Exist is a complicated feature. This setting and story real quick. Takumi and his daughter Hana live in Mizubiki Village, close to Tokyo. One day, the village's inhabitants become aware of a plan to build a camping site, or a glamping site, as it were, near Takumi's house, offering residents a comfortable escape to nature. Upon meeting with the company who's going to be building this glamping site, the local villagers find that they don't really agree with the way things are going and the idea of their hometown and their village, their forest, kind of being upset for what this big company wants to do. And it's in those disagreements that we find the real core of human nature and whether or not evil does, in fact, exist. The film stars an interesting cast, mostly locals, as I understand it. None of them have photos on IMDb. They're all great. For what it's worth, Ryûsuke Hamaguchi wrote and directed this feature, just like Drive My Car from a couple years ago, and it's tremendous. I've heard it described as a stealth thriller, which is really fascinating. It is unrated, though to tell you, I would probably approximate it to like a PG-13 rating if I could. It is an hour 46. It is shorter than The Crow, which we just reviewed. It is a really unique feature that I wish we'd gotten to see in theaters, but we didn't. We rented it on VOD here at home in the States. You can get it for about $6 on a variety of services. I gotta know, does evil exist? And Andy, what'd you think?
So I've been excited to see this because I'd heard a lot of good things, but also that it's kind of mysterious, maybe not the movie that you think it is. And it's this incredible examination between man's relationship with nature, because you have these kind of salt of the earth people who kind of live on the land or in the land, and then these corporate yuppies who they want their camping sign, they gotta turn this around quickly, get their money, and so you have a clash of cultures and interests, and it's kind of saying a lot, but also it's incredibly metaphorical. It's very, very slow in parts. Like there are whole sequences of just like the camera looking from the ground up to the sky, seeing like through the trees. So much of this just looks like a painting. It looks like National Geographic for a long time. Really interesting how this movie got started. It was actually this concept film where it was just going to be a short film, like 20-30 minutes, with live orchestral accompaniment by Aiko Ishibashi, who ended up doing the music for this. So I think there's that project still exists next to this. So there's kind of two versions of this. But it's very meditative. It reminded me of things like Memoria, or even something like not a history of violence, in a violent nature, where we're taking our time in the woods, in nature, and we have these really interesting characters. We have our villagers who are concerned about this new camping site, and these kind of capitalists who definitely don't care at all what the villagers think and are just kind of going there for show. But maybe their cold hearts can be swayed. It's a real interesting relationship between like different kinds of people.
Yeah, a film about nature, not only in its setting, but in the nature of how we talk to and deal with and grow to understand one another. Evil Does Not Exist is a film set in a time of transition, right? It's not spring and it's not winter. It is becoming spring. We're just turning over, right? So shooting in the forest, you'd think you'd see lots of greens, lots of big, bountiful trees, but quite the opposite. Everything's mostly dead or dying or just starting to grow back in, right? Like lots of browns, lots of sticks, lots of leaves, lots of neutral colors, and a bit of snow too. And it's kind of a fascinating time to set this movie because our characters are in transition, right? Like Takumi and the residents of this local village functionally like the way things are, right? They're kind of away from the city and they're away from everybody, and Takumi can drive Hana into school and pick her up in the afternoon when he doesn't forget on accident. Forgetful man. But things are going well. And when this company comes in and says, hey, we're going to open a glamping site. Glamping is wildly modern, right? Like it's camping with a twist, and it's exciting and it's new. They're not super into it. And there's this funny pivot in the film where our kind of focus shifts from our villagers, from Takumi, to some of the people who work for this company. It's about the halfway point in the film, actually. And we get this shift over from kind of the villagers' point of view to the employees' point of view. And you come to find via a long car ride where they have a really frank conversation that just like Takumi and the villagers, these people are radically normal. Right? They are all from the same place. Ultimately, they are all kind of outsiders when it comes to the forest. And they all need to come together on a compromise because like water, problems will eventually roll downhill and affect everybody downstream as much as they would affect people upstream. The film is full of metaphors like this. Like it is full of big ideas set over, as Andy very kindly pointed out, sometimes achingly slow shots. There are shots in this that are wildly long, where there are no cuts, where very little happens. You just kind of sit with it, you know? Yeah, Andy pointed out to
That's
Memoria,
cinema, baby.
History of Violence. I thought a lot of Lee Isaac Chung's previous film before Twisters, Minari, right? Like a lot of like out in nature, taken in the world, we're getting something and we're giving something back. Like those all feel like really central themes. What's interesting is where this movie pivots into the idea of a thriller, because I was watching it thinking, when is this going to get thrilling? And stealth thriller really is apt because it's I can't really talk about it without giving it away, but like it is something that is uniquely personal to the viewer. I think a lot of people would watch this and either walk away and be like, that was slow and awful, or walk away like, oh my God, that was really tremendous. You know, I saw something I haven't seen before.
So along those lines, I think one of the reasons it is such an interesting thriller is that, you know, it's about man's relationship with nature. And it kind of has this thing to say that, you know, nature is in this village is portrayed very like calmly serene. There's snow. There's there's hot springs where they get water from. There's deer that are easily frightened. It's very, very zen. But then we also have to remember that nature is also capable of great violence and terror and death itself. And there's the movie kind of hints at that all around, where we have our interested parties, and this is where the title comes into play. Evil does not exist. They're all just fighting for what's important to them. You know, the investors who are trying to get the campground built. You know, they've spent money. They have these subsidies. They don't have any other. They can't go outside of the budget. They can't extend the deadline. You have the workers for them that, well, they're just they have bills to pay. They're you know, they have to have a job. This is where they ended up. They ended up doing something they didn't really. They work for a talent agency. They're like, why are we building a campground? And same thing with our villagers who don't want things to change. Who don't want their water to be polluted, or the deer to encounter a bunch of fences. But there's all these hints of violence or possible violence going on in the background. Takumi wields an axe quite a bit. Like he chops a whole lot of wood, and you know, it's just an inherently violent thing. He uses a chainsaw and stuff, and this is, you know, all in handyman stuff, but we all know these things could be used elsewhere. We hear gunshots in the distance, and we never really confirmed like who that is, or like we never see who these hunters are. So it's just like this looming threat that like there's always violence possible in the background.
You mentioned the score, and I think that's a perfect place to kind of pick that up. By Aiko Ishibashi, I think is the composer's
name.
Wildly dreadful. often sorrowful, oddly discordant, really great work, and work that's difficult to like talk about because when I say wildly dreadful, it sounds like it's bad music. No, I mean it's music that fills you with dread, which is interesting because it's often paired with scenes that are not typically dread-filled scenes, right? It's people walking in the woods, it's experiencing nature, maybe they're headed somewhere, but it just gives you this unsettling feeling, and that's part of what contributes to this film's like unique sense of kind of soft suspense that runs under a lot of it. Additionally, like I do think the pacing's slow, but it gives you so much time to just sit with what you're looking at and kind of just thoughtfully ponder like the world in which our characters live in, but more importantly, we live in. Hamaguchi, like one of the things that really drew me to Drive My Car was the landscapes in the trailer for Drive My Car. If you remember, a lot of driving scenes in that film, a lot of these like big wide lenses of Tokyo, right, and of Japan, like buildings going on for miles in the background. And here we get like the total inverse of that, right? Like incredible shots of nature, like Andy said, like you just fell into a National Geographic, like stuff that looks photo perfect, like stuff that just is so much a place you would want to walk through, is so much a place you would want to go to kind of escape your problems, and so much of an interesting setting for a company to come in and plant its feet and say, hey, we're going to put a septic tank here and we're going to build some cabins there. And y'all are cool with us tearing out these trees, right? That's not a problem. Like it really gives the film this unique air that I don't get from a lot of other movies. I've been really pleased to kind of sit back and chew on it. If anything, I wish I'd seen it in a theater. Probably whatever his next film is, I need to just go catch a ticket early, I think, because it's great on VOD. But man, I really wish I could have seen it on the big screen.
I felt the same way. Usually when we see things on the big screen, a lot of times we're like, yeah, you just save it for streaming. So it's fine when you're at home. This is one of those few things that we saw at home. And I'm like, man, I would love to see this on the big screen. It demands for you to see it on the big screen, to experience these incredibly slow shots, the focus on nature, these scenes that are almost a painting, that are undisturbed for minutes at a time. It's such a beautiful film. I also love the music by, like you said, Aiko Ishibashi, who helped collaborate with Hamaguchi on this project or to create this project. The music, a lot of times in film, is generally it's background music. It just kind of adds some excitement or kind of follows the mood. In this one, the music is front and center. It's as important as what you're seeing on screen. It feels like you're at a concert for the music itself. And so again, it helps tie into the nature of it all. I've added it to my long running playlist of film soundtracks. Really, really love the music.
Yeah, really fantastic. Overall, I don't want to get into any spoilers. I don't want to kind of, I don't want to break anything for people, but I'm excited to get to recommendations. I guess I feel like I'm running out of things to say. Andy, any other thoughts on this one?
No, I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Evil Does Not Exist?
I absolutely would. I ended up really liking this more than I even would thought, even though I was excited to see, because I didn't really know what I was getting into, and I had heard some kind of intriguing comments from other people. But I think it's a fascinating look at man's relationship to nature and man's relationship to each other and kind of conflicting interests. It has beautiful score, visuals, performances, and it's a very philosophical movie. Highly recommend.
Yeah, same. I think Evil Does Not Exist rocks. Check it out if you can. Like I said, it's available on VOD for around $6 right now. It'd probably be on some streamer soon-ish, but if you happen to have a local theater running it, I don't know, like we got a couple historic theaters in town here, like, and you see it pop up, like maybe go try to catch it if you can, because I think that's where it's best experienced. It's slow, but it's thoughtful in the best way that so few films are nowadays. Excited to see what Hamaguchi does next. We will check it out here on Off Script. And if you want to hear that review in the future or other reviews we got going on in the future, best way to do that is just subscribe to the show. Before I tell you about subscribing, though, Andy's got to tell us what we're watching next week, because that's how this goes. Andy, what are we watching next week?
So with the Labor Day holiday coming up, we're actually going to be taking the week off, but we will be back on September 10th with a review for Beetlejuice, which comes out September 6th. And we'll be looking for something else on streaming, maybe Horizon. Maybe we're going to get around to it, maybe Blink Twice. We'll we'll see what else kind of comes up. Some FYI releases: the Reagan biopic starring Dennis Quaid comes out this Friday, August 30th. If you have, you'd have to pay me to see that, but that is coming out this week. And some upcoming stuff in September. Speak No Evil comes out September 13th, The Substance September 20th, and Megalopolis September 27th. But we'll be back on the 10th with Beetlejuice.
If you are an audio listener of the show, we love you. Thanks for listening. This show started on audio. It's where we've always been. But if you're a video enjoyer of the show, video watcher of the show on YouTube or Facebook or others where we post clips, you would have just gotten to see the biggest eye roll I think Andy's ever delivered talking about the Reagan movie coming out. Fantastic. Would recommend. Come check us out on YouTube. We got really exciting things going on. Individual reviews going up. Working on shorts. We got shorts coming along now. It's a whole thing. Big things going on the YouTube channel. We're also on all the usual social media places: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're on Twitter, X as some people call it. I still call it Twitter. I'll come around on it eventually. You can check out our audio platforms, of course: Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartMedia. You can find us over there. Amazon Music, I think we're floating around in there. You might be able to ask your smart device, your Amazon smart device at home. I don't want to say Alexa and just activate people's things, but Amazon smart device, and ask about listening to Off Script. She can tell you. She tells you where to find us. And of course, you can check out our website, offscriptfilmreview.com. You can mail us correspondence directly at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com. Good Lord. Episode 265 behind us already.
Ooh,
excited to take the break for Labor Day. Dude, I know. Another one down. And we'll be back with episode 266 in just a couple of weeks. From all of us at Off Script, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.